Hello and welcome to round 1, season 3 of the Automobilista Australia Rookie Cup. As you can see, hopefully on your screen, yep, there we are. We are in open wheels this time, so a new challenge awaits our rookies and lower class drivers that want to come along. It is one-shot qualifying, and we've got 3 races coming up. Unfortunately, we've got a bit of a small field tonight, but hopefully we do get a few runners later on. And tonight, once again, I've been joined by El Chief.
Hello. That's all.
Thank you.
You're
And
very welcome.
Coops has got us underway, the 1:23.8. Turmo has just smashed out a 1:21.3. We did see the fastest time in practice was a 1 minute 20.3. That was by Steve. And we've got Wayne Whitmore on a lap at the moment. He's currently 3/10 up at the second split.
It appears to have paused.
Hello and welcome. Obviously had a couple technical issues, unfortunately, which has led us to miss majority of qualifying so far, and I'm having to load the game up once again, but we should be back shortly. Those that did catch a glimpse early on, obviously Turmo was on pole with Coop second, but Wayne Whitmore did jump up to the top on a 1 minute 20.8. And obviously Turmo P2, Coops P3, Luke Joyner in P4, Glenn Miles P5, Steve Bolger currently on a lap at the moment. He was the fastest in practice, and he'll be hoping to jump up the top to P1. Although hasn't given a time for the second split there. Actually, no, it has on live races now. He was 4/10 down in the first sector. He's 10th faster in the middle sector. He's going to need a very good final sector to grab pole here. What can he do? No, he can't do it. So he manages a 1 minute 21.2 as Steve. And that leaves last year's champion, Brendan Ross.
He's just gone through the first sector.
He's 8/10 down, so not going to be pole position for him.
The word on the street is, with his upping in class, he was keen to start a few races from the back. So, interesting to see what he's scheming here.
Well, he's found a bit of time in the middle sector again. Both Ross and Bolger faster in the middle sector, though the fastest in the middle sector was Turmo with a 22.7. So Ross gets a bit twitchy under braking for the final turn. We're at the often unpronounceable circuit of Jacarepagua, the Curva Sol layout, and Brendan Ross goes P4. So he's not at the back, he's right in the middle with that lap time. So you've seen quite a few 21s. So we've got Wayne Whitmore on pole position on a 1 minute 20.8. Steve in P2, a 21.2. A 21.3 put Turmo in P3, and then just half a tenth behind Brendan Ross, a 21.388. And then a couple seconds adrift, we've got Coops in P5 on a 23.8. Luke Joyner, 1 minute 24.365 for P6. And Glenn Miles, a 1:28.497. So, bit of a disappointing qualifying session, and well, in terms of numbers for sure, but it's obviously Wayne Whitmore continuing his recent form. He's probably going to get bumped up to Pro B in a lot of the Series 4 next year, and that is something that obviously myself and you will be discussing after the Supercars round, Chief.
It certainly will be.
Alright, so we've got the standings right there if you want to check out live races for the obviously all your live timing needs and you want to see how your favourite driver is doing out there, obviously...
Well, we're both in the commentary box, Lewis. How can they check out their favourite driver?
Oh, good point. But anyway, we're just going to take a short break as we conduct a little driver's briefing. But before we go, if you want to check out live timing, obviously check out amsoz.liveraces.info, and that will bring up all your live timing needs and wants. So we'll take a short break, but we'll be back. Hello and welcome back to round 1, season 3 of the Automobilista Australia Rookie Cup. Currently in the warm-up session, it's just about to tick over to the race. And it should be an interesting one. Obviously we do have a small field, but drivers have been, as you can see on your screen there, struggling a little bit with these open wheel machines.
Not the easiest car to drive, these ones, as we've both found out the painful way.
Yeah, you can be a little bit rough with them, but you really do have to be smooth. And obviously, you remarked just before that they remind you of an LMP car crossed with the touring cars, in that you've got to be on the throttle or the brake at some point, and obviously if you're mid-corner anyway trying to turn, you've got to be on the throttle or the brake, otherwise obviously you do lose the car a little bit.
Yeah, it's a strange mix between the two of them. Obviously, they don't have the speed of an LMP2 or the sort of waywardness of a touring car, but they have to be driven in a similar way. Nice smooth inputs with the steering and sort of trying to keep the momentum up really, and try and sort of force the car forwards to keep it in line.
Yeah, they are very much a momentum car. You do have to try and keep your speed up as much as you can. I think they only have about 4 gears, I think, off the top of my head. Around here, you only really hit 4th going down the back straight in between turn 1 and 2.
God help us.
God help us. But, yeah, obviously, one thing that these guys are going to have to learn, obviously, throttle and brake modulation. You don't want to be too heavy on the brakes, because you will lock your tyres, and you will lose the rear end, because obviously there's no wings on these things, so you can't really rely on them. It's all about your driver inputs.
And that's one of the hardest things for me, was the open wheeler, but the absolute absence of any downforce.
Yeah, so that's something that obviously we want these rookies to learn, and obviously lower class drivers, is that it's not so much about you can't rely on the car so much. You've also got to rely on inputs and technique, and these cars should teach drivers a bit more about technique, that we hope obviously does help them improve, obviously when we run other open wheel series, but also with other cars. So hopefully that does come across. But obviously we have begun the formation lap, and Wayne Whitmore, as you can see on your screen, see pole position getter for race 1. We do have a 3-race format, so we'll see how the night unfolds, but Wayne Whitmore will lead us away. First pole position of the season, and joining him on the front row is Steve in P2, and then in P3 we've got Termo. P4 we've got Brendan Ross. P5,
picking the number 1 car there, Rossi.
He is, but he's a Pro B runner, so his championship points don't really count for much, although we might actually have to have a separate championship for those Pro B runners, because the only Pro rookie drivers tonight, or Pro-Am, are Coops and Glenn Miles. Speaking of Coops, he's in P5, and we've got Luke Joyner. Well, I guess he might be, regarded as a rookie, so we might keep him there as well. He's in P6, and then Glenn Miles P7, but we do hope obviously those numbers grow as the drivers form up onto the grid.
I think we did great with the filler there as they got around, so we could finish that grid run through right as they were lining up.
Yep, absolutely perfect.
And that's why we're in the commentary box and not on track.
Damn right, because we're much better commentators than we are drivers. We're a couple lights underway, and we're green. And Termo's got an absolute cracker start. He's the only one that really got away, and he's having a look up the inside of Wayne Whitmore. Rossi moves up to P3, but Steve Bolger's going to try and get him back, but Rossi sort of turned in on him there, and Whitmore finds himself, he's dropped back, and now Ross is very aggressive, and he finds himself now in front of Whitmore.
There's shenanigans afoot here.
It certainly is. They're going to try and go side by side. It's like Joyner having a look up the inside of Bolger there. And we've got a car off into the grass. In the back, that was Coops in P6. And Coop's had a very good run in the minis
Oh,
around
we've got
here.
a spinner. We've got a spinner. Steve has gone around. Steve has gone
We
around.
did see there was, I think there might have been contact with another car there, because there was another car that sort of stopped. So we'll have a look at the replay there.
Turmo already up to a 7.5 lead from Ross in second
Oh,
place.
yeah, so that was a big hit there. He got rear-ended, did Steve. Innocent bystander. And he's in the gravel trap, and he's not going too far. You can beach these cars in the gravel trap, so hopefully he does get out. But yeah, I believe it was Luke Joyner ran up the back of him. And unfortunately that might... oh, will he get out? He is struggling.
He's just about out,
Yeah, he's going to get it going,
There we
but
go.
he's well down at the moment. So Turmo leads us away. He's got 1.5 seconds over Brendan Ross, and Whitmore, after his poor start, is down in P3 at the moment. And then we've got Coops, he's a good 4 seconds back, and he's got Luke Joyner right behind him. And then Glenn Miles is a couple seconds off them, and unfortunately got Bulger. He's pretty much half a lap, 3/4 of a lap behind the leaders at the moment.
Yeah, 49 seconds off Turmo is Bulger at the moment, so an uphill battle for him to improve it all.
That said though, he'll be wanting just to keep it going. Obviously I think we'll have a Pro B championship just to give those guys a bit of a bit of their own championship fight there to keep it going.
A bit more incentive, maybe bring the numbers up a bit too if people want to go for a weird to drive championship.
That's it. So well, the closest
looks like Ross may have closed in a little bit here. He has. He's halved that gap in one sector there.
It's 8/10. He's gained 8/10 of a second, and behind him, Whitmore's gained up quite a bit of time on Ross as well. As Ross gets it very sideways at last turn, and he's able to hold it. That's one thing with these cars. You can get them very sideways, but you can bring them back. So do look out for that. They do have a bit of mechanical grip.
Yeah, the absence of the rear wing does help quite a lot there with the aero. As soon as you go sideways, the back just sort of lifts. It doesn't have the air creating the downforce the same way, whereas these not having that, you get the grip in a different way, so that makes them a little bit more slidable.
And with that slide, that's cost obviously Ross. That's cost him a good 6/10 of a second. On that last lap, Turmo a 21.7, Ross a 21.4, and Whitmore a 21.2. And Steve Bulger well down the field in P7. He's got the fastest first and second sectors so far, so he's on a mission to try and claw back something from this race, well down the field. But we'll just stick with this battle between Ross and Whitmore for now. It does look
Whitmore right behind him too. These guys are cleared out. There's a 6-second gap between third and fourth place at the moment.
And there then Bulger, fastest man on track by a good 6/10 of a second. So
Looks like Joyner and Coops may be having a little bit of a scrap as well. Just go back and have a look at them. Bit of air between them, but not too much. Just over a second.
yeah, I think that gap has come down a little bit. Looks like Coops did extend it, but obviously Joyner sort of composed himself a little bit and started to close in a little bit. But these front three, there's not too much between them. 21.0 for Turmo, 20.8 for Ross, a 20.9 for Whitmore. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how people try and go for overtakes in these things. I don't think there's too much of a slipstream in these cars, so it's all going to have to be about setting the driver in front up.
Does look like from my readouts that the tyre wear shouldn't be too severe here. I'm not sure if it's the cars or the track yet. Obviously we're sort of starting fresh as well. We know the minis quite well how much wear to expect from them, so...
Well, there isn't a severe amount of wear in these cars, but once you get to a certain point, I think once the drivers get to about lap 10 or 11, I think you'll see him sliding around quite a bit more, especially in the left-handers. When I did a bit of a run before, especially that rear right, if you lean on that too much, you'll be hanging it out, and as Mark Skase loves to say, he'll be right out sideways.
He'll be right out sideways. That's all I had to contribute to that.
That's right. So it doesn't look like that gap's really grown or shrunk at the front.
With the fastest lap though in the Lee Wiggers car. I've been wanting to say that in the broadcast since I spotted it.
Yep, all these guys in the front in the 1 minute 20s now.
Yeah, gap's really closing up between them as well. It'd be interesting to see these guys if they do start racing each other a bit harder. Just sort of to...
Ooh, Rossi sideways, and that's left Whitmore with nowhere to go. Now Whitmore's, I reckon his best bet will be into turn 3 here. If he can just hang on and then get on the power earlier, you go around the outside there into turn 3.
So Rossi has... No, it's just the camera angle. It looked like he'd got a ridiculously fast run out of those corners after the mistake.
Well, it looks like he has anyway, because he has extended a little bit of a gap over Whitmore. And,
Tomo just puts a couple wheels off there. Speaking of words, I put mine off.
And then Rossi behind, a little bit slower under braking, and now Whitmore's right behind. So this battle pack is getting very... Well, it is getting closer and closer. As Rossi's around. That's him around, and that's him out of this equation.
Well, I was wondering what it'd be like if we did wind up with the three of them racing, and now I don't wonder anymore.
Well, I think these are going to catch a few drivers out. You can't overdrive these things, especially under braking, as I think Brendan Ross has just found out. If you do try and push the braking, you will lose the back end, and he's done that there and shown exactly what happens when you do. But further down the field, Stoive is moved up in front of Glenn Miles, so he's not last anymore, but he's still a good 29 seconds or so off Luke Joyner.
34? Trying to do maths in my head, that's never a good thing.
Let's just go back. 35 going by the live timing on the screen, but on live races it does, for whatever reason, it does like to fluctuate instead of just stick to the splits.
Whitmore right behind Tomo now. Oh, we've already got the camera on them.
You certainly do. So Tomo is going to have to just drive it straight, I reckon. Just drive it straight and smooth. Don't get it too sideways. Don't touch the grass, and that'll make it pretty difficult.
Bit of a wiggle there for Tomo. But yeah, if I was Tomo at the moment, I'd probably try and protect the tyres a bit and get the guy behind me to use up his a little bit more, trying to find that way through under braking and under acceleration while protecting mine, and then just have the answer for him at the end.
I think he's just got to get turn 1 right. If he can get that corner right every lap, get the exit spot on, it'll give Whitmore no chance here into turn 2. But he's run wide there at turn 2. Now he's going to hang.
That's that Whitmore through.
He's going to have to hang on around the outside. And well, that's it.
These cars, they just look like they're about to let go at any moment, don't they?
They certainly do. So that's Whitmore into the lead, and I think he'll probably drive away now, and we'll probably end up having a pretty boring race. So we can thank Brendan Ross for spinning there, and he's now caused us to most likely have a very boring 7 laps here.
What hasn't he ruined?
Yeah, he's ruined absolutely everything. So Brendan Ross, there's a reason why your name was changed on Discord. That said, though, Tomo in the back half of this lap is tried to stick with Whitmore.
I think having someone to follow will benefit him here, obviously. But yeah, he's been out the front, I think, every lap, pretty much since the first corner. So he hasn't really had a chance to follow. And now it's his turn just to sort of use Whitmore as a braking marker and everything.
Yeah, it might sort of allow him to watch Whitmore and see the lines and braking points, and obviously turn in and just reference points that Whitmore's using. And it might actually help him pace-wise, obviously, for the coming races, being able to follow him for a lap or two. So we'll see how that goes. But behind him, Brendan Ross is 10 seconds behind them, and then 6 seconds behind him is Coops, and Coops has dropped Joyner. He's now 4.7 behind Coops, so Joyner's made a mistake somewhere. And 26 seconds behind him is Stoive, who second fastest man on track at the moment. Constantly in the mid 1 minute 20s, as you can see on your screen, 1 minute 20.6. He's got the fastest lap of the race.
Whitmore's getting away here now, over a second, almost a second and a half up.
Yep, so he will be a Pro B runner for this championship. Obviously, he hasn't had much experience here, but pace-wise, we have seen a limited running he did in the rookies last season, and obviously in the touring cars. I think the practice round and obviously the first round that he's quite handy. So he will be a Pro B runner, as will Termo, Brendan Ross, who won the championship, and Steve.
Tomo has, in that last sector, gained a few tenths back on him though, so
Yeah, obviously
maybe just making a mistake in the first or second sector in the previous lap.
Well, on the previous lap, looking at the live races, Wayne Whitmore set the fastest middle sector of a 22.6, so that was pretty handy.
Oh, so he's cheating.
Possibly.
They're all cheats. Anyone who's won a race is a cheat.
You've won a race.
Shit. So I forgot that as soon as I said it.
You cheat. So Whitmore now coming up the back behind Glenn Miles, and that's balked him a little bit. He's had to go around the outside. But probably won't cost him too much, and looks like it looked like Miles was getting out of the way for Termo, but he didn't make it too easy.
Yeah, he's lifted off there just in the nick of time, so Termo could take his line into that corner.
Yeah, so that cost 0.5 of a second for Whitmore, so it's brought Termo back into play. And that gap now 1.1 seconds. We'll see what it is when it crosses the start-finish line. 1 second. Termo doing a decent lap.
Yeah, only 10th and a half off his best lap, so nice and consistent here from Termo, it would seem.
So we'll just ride on board with him just over his left shoulder. We'll go for a lap around this Jacarepagua circuit.
That's the Falcon Racing engine cover camera.
It certainly is. So turn 1 in third gear down to second for turn 3, sorry. Could have got on the power a bit earlier there. Lifts off just a little bit there. You can take it flat there, and he stays in third. Not the most ideal line there, but not too bad. Steve Bulger, fastest lap, 120.3, so he's pushing hard out there. His tyres are fine. Ooh, gets it very sideways in the penultimate corner. That said though, it's a much better lap compared to Wayne Whitmore than his last couple.
Tapping a little bit further back, it looks like Joyner may be clawing back into Coops just a little bit. No, he's just lost another 4 tenths there. Gap is under 3 seconds again though, I believe it was over 4 or 5 earlier.
So Ross now, he's having a lonely race. Coops has lost time to Joyner. It was a good 4 seconds, and it's 2.9 at the last split time. And we've got a yellow somewhere. Ross has gone round. Ross has gone round at turn 1. So
that could spice things up for us a bit here.
Yeah, he outbroke himself into turn 1 and lost the rear end.
That gap between Coops and Joyner has stayed at 2.9 as they cross the line, so very similar in the final sector. There's so little going on track that we're actually being proper commentators for a change.
Yep, it looks like Steve has made a mistake somewhere as well, because his first sector was a good 7 seconds off where you want to be. Yeah, 128.
That does sound like a mistake to me.
128.0 on that lap for him.
Coops is just coming up behind Glenn Miles now.
Well, Joyner's got that gap down, so that gap now is 1.8 seconds, so he's faster at the moment, and that was before Glenn Miles.
Ooh, it looks like that may have just held Coops up a little bit. Miles sticking to the line.
He's made that very difficult for
it looks
Coops there.
Looks like Coops has just balked a little bit on exit from the previous corner behind Miles, and doesn't look to have helped Joyner out too much, but we'll see when they come across the line what the gap is.
Well, Joyner was able to brake and turn in where he wanted for the final turn. Well, Coops had to take the inside line, which did compromise him a little bit. And that gap now, 1.4 seconds. So
it's gone out by 100th there in the final sector, so pretty much identical between them again.
And at the front, Whitmore currently leads by 1.2 seconds, and Turmo's picked up his pace. He's at a 1 minute 20.6. He was a hundredth faster on that last lap than Whitmore in front. So he's sort of watched Whitmore a bit, and he's found how to drive this circuit.
By my maths, 100-second lap won't be enough for Turmo though.
It certainly won't, as they've got, well, it's just about to be 2 laps.
Gap between Coops and Joyner under a second. 8/10 separated until now.
Yep, we'll Turmo on the grass there through the penultimate turn. So cut back to the Coops and Joyner battle.
Just as we look like we might get a fight for the lead, we get a fight for fourth, and they're suddenly spoilt.
Yep. But Joyner not using all of the road there in that left-hander, while Coops, as you can see, right onto the exit rumble strip. And Joyner's had a spin there, and well, there it is. We've got no battle, and he's spun the wrong way. And you don't want to drive it on the gravel, which he's done, and he's going to struggle to get out of that. And dare I say, he's going to finish behind Steve. But Steve, he looked like he's going into the pit, Steve, but and he's in the barrier. So what is going on there? What has he done? Right on board with him. Just ran wide. Tried to gas it up on the grass. Come back onto the track. Looked like he's going to go into the pits, and he's binned it. What was Steve doing? And he's DNF'd. So he could have kept going. Decided not to. And, well, now we've got nothing going on here. Because
sorry, I just saw that one back. I shouldn't laugh, but it's hilarious to watch.
I don't know what was going through his head there. But anyway, we've got more. He's got that gap over 2 seconds out. Almost at the fastest lap. Well, almost at his fastest lap of the race there. And well, Turbo actually that last sector was very good. He was 2/10 faster than Whitmore. But overall on that lap, he lost 6/10. So the gap 1.9 between the obviously first and second as we begin the final lap. We've got Brendan Ross a distant third place. He's 22 seconds behind those guys and is 10 seconds in front of Coops. And Coops is now 38 seconds in front of Luke Joyner with Bolger DNF.
It's been a race, and that's the only adjective I can think of for it.
It's been a race that has been ruined by Brendan Ross going off early on and ruining whatever battle we could have had between himself, Turmo, and Wayne Whitmore.
He's got 2 more chances at it though, so hopefully it's second time lucky and not third time lucky, because that would be quite a wait for some proper on-track action as Turmo spins it.
He spins it, and well, Whitmore's going to go unchallenged at the line. So he's the only one really not to make a mistake, except for not getting the greatest start, but that didn't really cost him in the grand scheme of things. So Whitmore will cross the line and take race 1, round 1 of season 3 in the Formula Trainer Cars. Turmo will finish P2 after leading first half of this race. Did a solid job, aside from obviously the penultimate corner there, and Brendan Ross will finish a distant third place after his spin at the final turn early on.
I wonder if these cars can do donuts.
I'm pretty sure they can, and Coops will finish P4. There he goes, P4 for Coops. Luke Joyner is a good 37 seconds behind, so he was a little bit faster on the last lap and a half, 2 laps than Coops, but he blew it by having that spin.
That one looked like it would have been a good race for 4th place to the flag, but unfortunately that mistake for Joyner put paid to that eventuating.
Yep, so we'll just wait obviously for Luke Joyner to cross the line. I believe Glenn Miles would have already crossed the line for 6th place, being a lap down.
I think we may have to disqualify Whitmore.
Yeah, he's driven it back to the pits and he's not done doughy, so that is... In fact, that is a permanent ban from Automobilista Australia, so pack your bags, Wayne. You're out of here, no doughies.
I think it's actually a prison term.
Yeah, I heard somewhere that that's a 25-year sentence.
And you don't get soap on a rope.
Yeah, so good luck with that one, Wayne. That's what you get for not doing doughies. So we'll just go through the final order once again. So Wayne Whitmore takes out the first race of the Rookie Cup in Season 3. We've got Turbo in P2, Brendan Ross P3, Coops in P4, Luke Joyner P5, Glenn Miles P6, and Steve being the only DNF after being taken out on the first lap by Luke Joyner and then having to try and recover. And then obviously ultimately succumbing at the penultimate corner and ending up into the pit wall. But obviously it turned out to be a fairly quiet race in the second half of that race. Hopefully the next two do provide a little bit more action. But we'll just go to a short break and then we'll talk a little bit about obviously that first race. So we shall be back. Oh, I must have pressed 0 somewhere, so we're back.
Oh,
Don't know where I pressed it, but anyway, we're back.
one shot qualifying in 30 seconds.
There we go, that's where I've done it. So, welcome back. We're just about to tick it over to race 2. So, let's see. Ticking over. Obviously, second race here is going to be, once again, one-shot qualifying for those playing at home and obviously those participating. It won't be the case going forward, but obviously because there's no order, no championship order to go reverse grid for this second race, we're jumping over to obviously another qualifying session. So Scruff,
Yes.
before, before we get going, we've obviously got a couple of guys pretty keen to get a lap in, even though it's one-shot qualifying. They obviously want to get blocked, so a couple of guys lining up. But before obviously these guys get going, who was your driver of race 1 there?
Wayne Whitmore.
Yeah, pretty. That's all that really needs to be said, really. He's the only one that didn't really make a mistake, and obviously being the fastest and most consistent of the lot. But it would have been interesting to see if Steve, if he hadn't been wiped out on that first lap, how he would have gone. I dare say he probably would have made it an interesting battle at the front.
Steve, Ross, Whitmore, and Termo all in with a big chance in both these final 2 races if they can just keep out of trouble and keep the car pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, it's one thing I think we're going to see throughout this season for every driver is that these cars aren't easy to obviously drive on the edge for even these short and 40-kilometre races. So that's something that drivers are going to have to sort of work out. They're probably going to have to drive at about 99, even 98%, just to make sure that they obviously remain at a competitive pace, but obviously so they don't throw the car away, because obviously we did speak to Ross in between obviously qualifying and the last race, and yeah, the braking did catch him out there at that final turn, and you can't just slam on the brakes and stay on the brakes like you can obviously, or like you could in the minis, which had anti-lock brakes but also had a little bit of weight to them as well to sort of save them a little bit.
Yeah, completely different than anything any of us really are used to do at Automobilista Australia. I know you and I, we've driven them, but I can't speak for you, but I know I've never raced anything quite like these. Just you're racing side by side with people in these will be the biggest challenge, and something I definitely look forward to seeing when it eventuates.
It will be interesting to see. I think drivers are going to have to learn that they can't just rely on, say, slipstream like they can in other cars and other series. They're going to have to. Obviously, you did touch on this in the qualifying and last race. Is that they're gonna have to set drivers up where they're going to have to force the driver in front to perhaps go a little bit defensive in one corner, compromise their exit a little bit, and then get them on the next one. So hopefully, it does teach drivers to just be a little bit smarter and set guys up. But in qualifying at the moment, Termo and Coops are out on track at the moment. Termo being the fastest in the first sector with 33.6 and 56.5 at the second split time, 22.8 in the middle sector. So it's quite a decent lap he's putting together here. He put it together.
Whitmore's just done the fastest first sector.
Yeah,
by
over
a tenth.
Yeah, about a tenth and a half there. So Termo crosses the line, 20.8, which is pretty close to matching what he did in the first qualifying session. Coops is about to cross the line. He sets a 23.2, which is I think a little bit faster than what he managed in the first qualifying session. Whitmore's up by 4/10 on Termo. And he'll probably, going by his final corner, he'll probably knock in a 1 minute 20.4 or so. Perhaps even a little quicker. Yeah, there we go. 1 minute 20.365. That would have been very close to the fastest lap of the race in that first race there.
tells me one thing, given we are on a completely green track again, and that is it will be very interesting at the end of the season to come back here for another little one-off race or something, just to sort of see what the times are then, because clearly these guys are, well, they're obviously going to be adapting to the cars still, but to be doing pretty much the same times they did in the first qualifying session on a worn-in track does seem to suggest that there's going to be a bit left out there. Sort of once they are a bit more familiar with the car and how to get them around the tracks
Yeah,
as quickly as possible.
yeah, I think a lot of these guys are learning the car. Some of these guys do know the track, or a lot of them do anyway. In that they drove here last season in the Rookie Cup. As Luke Joyner has jumped up to P3 on a 22.0. But yeah, I think it would be interesting to see. We might even chuck it, do something like that, do an end of season sort of evaluation, and just see where they are. Because yeah, these cars are completely different to drive than anything else they've driven before. I'd have to imagine, because I don't think, obviously, there's nothing here that we've run that's come close. Like the F3s, they had a bit of downforce on them, and you had to drive them a different way than what you can with these cars. So they're not even comparable, even though they are open wheel.
Yeah, and Luke Joyner and Brendan Ross both having driven in the Formula One series, which would be in many ways, well, in some ways, the closest things to them, being that they are open wheelers and like to spin. Still a completely different kind of thing to tame.
I think that there's a slight difference between obviously these Formula Trainer cars and a Formula One car, in that Formula One, they've got a thing called downforce with diffusers.
Can I go and grab one of the
Front.
Formula One cars and just sort of drive around with them?
No. So
We got one in the back of the van.
Glenn Miles crosses the line and he goes slower than his fastest time. He's managed a 26.7, and on that lap he obviously did run wide a couple of times and went onto the grass, so he's in P5.
Brendan Ross, Steve Bolger, sorry, is about to start his lap.
So we'll cut to him in the number 8 car, and it was on very wide, almost on the grass there at turn 1. That said, it should give him a decent run here down this back straight to turn 2. If you turn in too early there for turn 1, it does sort of muck up your line on the exit there. So we'll see where he stands in the first split.
A little bit wide maybe there, but sets himself up well for a quick exit and a good line into turn 3.
So he's almost pretty much 3/10 down. Obviously that'll be due to running a bit wide there at turn 1 there, but his turn 2 looked alright. He's pushing very hard there all the time in this middle sector through that right-hander just after the first sector ends, and obviously this one here. So he looks like he's got both of them alright. That said though, he's lost a tenth of a second. So he's pretty much 4/10 down. He's given it everything on the exit there. That might even be a track cut. But he's kept his foot in it, so we will see. He's about to cross the line. Uses all the road on the exit, and he's going to set a 21.2. So he's 8/10 off there, and he's not happy with that lap.
Brendan Ross just going through the first sector there with a 34.7.
Yeah, so he's made a
Has
mistake.
him a fair way off the pace there. Yeah, he's would go 6th place if the rest of the lap matches his first sector. Going through the second.
And he's around again. So he did say he wanted to start at the back a couple of these races. Well, he's going to be doing it here. And he's aborted that one. So just to go through the qualifying for everybody. Obviously you can see on the left side of the screen there the times that, well, the gaps that have been set. So we've got Wayne Whitmore on pole position on a 1 minute 20.365. Then we've got Termo in P2 on a 1 minute 20.838. Steve a 1:21.256. Luke Joyner, a 1 minute 22.079. And then we've got Coops on a 1:23.229. Glenn Miles, a 1:29.082. So he's got a bit of work to do to get a little bit closer to those guys in front. And then obviously Brendan Ross didn't set a lap, so he will start at the back of the field. Obviously, he was able to drive the Minis and the Lancers, but he's having a bit of trouble with these Formula trainers.
I tuned out, I'm sorry.
Well, I guess that is what we have come to expect from El Chief. But
Thank you.
but yeah, obviously we're just about to. In fact, we might even just skip ahead. Obviously, everybody's set their lap times. And yeah, we'll have just a short 5-minute warm-up session. I think we'll just cut it short for these guys. So we'll just take a short break, but we'll be back in a minute or so to discuss obviously qualifying and hopefully what lies ahead. we are back. We've got about 2 minutes left before we tick it over to the race. So that gives us a little bit of time to, well, just stuff around and talk trash, I suppose, until we do tick over to race 2. Haven't seen anybody else join the server, which is a little unfortunate. Still only have the 7 runners. So hopefully for round 2 and perhaps even race 3 here tonight, we might see a couple guys join.
I am definitely just bitterly disappointed with everyone, including the people that are here.
Well, I do believe that you're greatly disappointed in a certain driver. And you did say to me before the broadcast that you were going to speak your mind about a certain Gary Neville.
Oh, Gary Neville, where you live in England, where it's always raining, therefore you're always sick, and a little bit sick. No, I don't. No, get out of the group. Just go. No one needs you, etc.
That's a bit harsh.
Oh, well, and I hope you get better soon, Gary.
That's a bit better.
There's a middle ground somewhere. I think I've nailed it.
Yes.
Oh, my knee just cracked.
But obviously, I think it probably gives us a little bit of time. Actually, no, we're about 30 seconds before ticking it over, but it does give us, I guess, a minute or so to sort of talk about, see what is upcoming and what may be happening next season. Obviously, we did touch upon the obviously the changing, or the thought process through changing some of the drivers' classes. There will be a couple of guys that will be moved up from Pro-Am or Rookie to Pro B, so that'll get a larger class there. Obviously, a couple of the newer guys, obviously Wayne Whitmore, Turmo, and the like, will certainly be moving up. And then another thing, I suppose, is that we've even had plans for the next Rookie Cup, but it's not going to be called the Rookie Cup. It's going to be, obviously, once the Supercars season gets underway, and obviously this season of Formula Trainers ends, it will be moved into Super 2 format, where all drivers from Pro-Am up to Pro B will be eligible to race. So we did see a number of the Pro-Am and obviously a lot of Pro B guys towards the end of the last Supercars season obviously fall away and not race due to various reasons. And obviously the field pace and speed did pick up with a lot of new guys from iRacing and the like coming along, which sort of did discourage a number of runners as well.
Yeah, that one definitely the series with the biggest pace gap between each ranking really. The Pro A guys leaps and bounds ahead of the Pro B guys, who were leaps and bounds ahead of some of the Pro Ams. Those two did mix in a little bit, but generally it was the ones that would sort of split into 3 or 4 groups with the people like maybe Crash constantly scattered between.
Well, even then, like, they get between guys and, well, a lot of the newer guys, obviously they'd be at the front of the field, and then you have Pro A guys that wouldn't even be within a second a lap of them. So
I think that's just you trying to hide that you cheat.
So obviously that did discourage quite a number of guys, and they stopped racing V8s, and we know a lot of people do want to race them, so we thought, well, we did want to get a Super 2 series up and running. Obviously we did have 2 servers going for a while, and we did have big numbers, but once those numbers died off, we thought we better merge them back together again to get the larger fields. It went well for quite a while, but yeah, the last couple V8 rounds, certainly the numbers died off. But we're on the formation lap here, and about half a lap through, and as you can see on your screen, Wayne Whitmore will lead us away from pole position, and joining him on the front row this time out is Turmo. In P3 we've got Steve, who wasn't particularly happy with his lap, and behind him Luke Joyner. Hopefully we'll avoid running into the back of Steve this time out. And then we've got Coops in P5, Glenn Miles P6, and we've got last year's champion Brendan Ross saying, well, he said beforehand that he wouldn't mind starting a couple races at the back to get a bit of racing in. Well, he's going to be starting at the back here after he made a couple of mistakes in qualifying and then ultimately spinning and not completing a lap. So the drivers have formed up. Now, who's going to get away the best this time?
Yeah, Whitmore will be definitely hoping for a better launch off the line this time out.
2 lights up, and we are away once again. Turmo got the initial jump away.
Better launch for Whitmore this time, sure. Someone in the back,
Rossi's
a little bit south of line. Yeah, Rossi having to dodge the...
Yeah, Rossi's up to P3, so Rossi...
It was Coops who didn't get away well off time. Rossi just having to dodge him on the launch a little bit there, but it doesn't look like either of them has been too held up by it.
We've got Steve having a look up the inside of Luke Joyner to turn 2, but decides better off it. And now Joyner all right behind Rossi. He's got it a little bit sideways there, and that's blocked. Bolger. Now Bolger's going to have to try and go around the outside.
Turmo out in front of Whitmore again.
And around goes Joyner, so Joyner lost it on his own, and I think that was...
It was Coops, I think,
yeah, Coops
in the background, just trying to get around him.
But at the front, Turmo leads. And
So it's the same situation we saw in the first race, and hopefully this time they can all keep it pointing in the right direction, and we can have the good battle that this does promise to be if they can all keep the cars going in the right direction.
And Steve has kept it going this time out, so he's a couple seconds adrift. But we did see him practice and in qualifying one that he's got a fair amount of pace in that thing, so he's one to look out for.
The issue he had early on in the previous Rookies Cup as well was just those first couple laps, he's not quite there.
You see Turmo a bit sideways there at turn 1, both he and Whitmore very wide. Ross has got the ideal line through there and he's gained at least half a second. He's now right behind Whitmore, but it's not close enough to do anything about it.
And apparently something's wrong with your voice, Lewis.
Well, there's nothing I can do about it. So you're just going to have to suck it and deal with it as Turmo goes defensive. And that sort of blocked Whitmore a bit. Now it's given Ross a chance.
I think you fixed your voice.
Probably just had to adjust it. No different mic, same one. But now...
Was it Strepsils?
No Strepsils, mate. But now... Well, Turmo's got a little bit of a lead. He's just ran wide there. And
a couple was off there. We've got Glenn Miles around.
But Steve has caught up to the back of this group now. So he'll be looking for a bit of redemption after that shocker in the first one. And I think that gap, even though it does say 1 second between Whitmore and Turmo, I think that's come down a bit in this last sector and a half.
Just coming across the line now for us to find out, and that gap is down to 0.8 of a second. About the same gap back to Brendan Ross, who's got pretty much the same back to Bolger, maybe an extra 10th back to Steve.
Yes, 8 between Ross and Bolger, it's 9/10, and between Ross and Whitmore, it's 8. So about the same. But on that last lap, Bolger, the fastest man on track, with 21.9, 4/10 faster than Turmo, who's at a 22.3, and Whitmore a 22.9. Though Bolger there runs very wide at turn 2. So he would have dropped down a bit there.
Yeah, he's just fallen off the back again now. Ross not quite as close to Whitmore as his lap, but I believe we saw in the first race Whitmore was very fast through the first sector, especially.
And he's very quick.
Puts a couple wheels off there.
Yeah, but he's very quick through that left-hander, and he's gained a lot of time on Turmo through that one corner. Turmo runs wide.
Turmo pushing too hard there.
He's driving too much in his mirrors there, and it's got to him. And hopefully that's not race over already. So hopefully Steve can get his go fast pants on and pass both Rossi and Turmo, because I think he's probably the fastest of the four, but he's just a little timid when it comes to race time. And, yeah, that mistake from Turmo costing him dear, and I think we'll probably see Whitmore drive off into the sunset, and it's going to be up to Ross and Steve to battle it out for second. But behind them, he's on his own. He's 10 seconds behind Bolger, and Miles is a good 2.1 or 21 seconds behind him. And then Luke Joyner, he must have had a spin somewhere. He's coming out of the pits, so he's had damage and had to repair it. And almost having a spin there again, so he's struggling a bit. But back at
just saw a little puff of smoke from Whitmore for a second. My camera's on Turmo. He wasn't in shot. I just got a little bit worried for a second that he may have had an issue, but keeps pointing in the right direction. That gap has come down a couple tenths between Turmo and Whitmore in that second or third sector. I can't remember.
Second sector, yeah.
These short tracks,
these
short tracks are hard.
He's had a good run in this final sector, and Turmo's right with him now. So just see the lap time as we cross the start-finish line. Yeah, Turmo was fastest lap of the race before Bolger crossed the line at 1 minute 20.7, so it was 2 tenths faster than Whitmore on that last lap. And obviously Bolger a couple tenths faster than him.
Right under the rear. I want to say wing, but there isn't one.
The gearbox.
Yeah, he's right under the rear gearbox. That front gearbox, you can forget about that.
He's having a look there into turn 3. A bit risky. Just trying to put off Whitmore. In front of him is Turmo. Keeps his foot in it through there this time around. In the first race he was lifting off through there, so it's good to see.
Looked like into turn 1, Turmo was going a little bit wider to try and get the drive out, but it looked like he may have just turned in a little bit too hard or had a little bit of a moment on the rear and not quite able to get close enough down to turn 2. As you see Bolger getting a big wobble on in the background there. Right behind him again now is Turmo, right up under the rear gearbox.
Yeah, that final sector he seems a lot more confident than Whitmore, because he had lost out in that middle sector. He's a couple tenths slower, but he's brought that right back.
Gets out, he's living a look.
He's having a look, he's going for a dive. And
he's
got it. He's got it.
Runs wide on the exit though. This could give Whitmore a shot down into turn.
Oh, Rossi's got the turn. Rossi's put in a decent lap. And in fact he's got the fastest lap now at 1:20.5, and Bolger behind has dropped a bit of time. So this is now once again become a 3-car battle. Looked like Ross was going to drop off, but Turmo is lost the rear end.
Oh,
and he's just held onto it. But he's given up the lead, so he's only in the lead for a good corner and then lost the back end. And
top 3 all within a second of each other now though, so this one's really starting to hot up. Turmo not in too bad a shape, he's not too far behind Whitmore, and we know Turmo is quicker in that final sector.
He was taking a better line that time through, I think it's turn 5. He's turned in a bit too early. Oh, that penultimate corner, he's messed up. He's probably overheated that rear right, and he's struggling a bit now. And looks like Whitmore's getting away, and Rossi looks like he's being held up by Turmo. So,
oh, another little bit of a slide there for Turmo. He's definitely struggling.
Yeah, he's got to refocus now. I think he's just lost his way a little bit, and he's just trying to overdrive it. And you're not going to get anywhere in these cars overdriving them.
Yeah, after a couple of those little mistakes, it can be quite easy just to panic a little bit and try and make up for them all in one go. And it's just not the way to go about it. You overheat your tyres, you tear them apart, you lock up, you might run wide or off the track again. It's just about refocusing and doing what you've already been doing.
Well, I think if there's one comparison I can make, it's not so much that it wears a tyre out, but one thing when you do slide like that in these cars that I can compare them to is the Porsche cars, is that once you overheat them, you have to drive them straight for the next lap and a half, because if you don't do that, you're just going to continually slide and you're just going to get slower and slower, as we've seen for this good lap and a half now from Turmo. So he's going to have to sort of focus a bit, drive it a bit straighter, and then his speed will come. But if he doesn't do that, he's going to find himself under all kinds of pressure.
Whitmore locking up there. Sorry, Lewis, just into that final corner. Thought he may have been about to run wide.
He has.
Gap looks like it's come back down a little bit.
Yeah,
it has. It's down.
Yeah, so
a fair way there.
Yeah, so that mistake costing Whitmore a bit of time. And once again, Turmo side, he's battling it through turn 1.
Yeah, I think Rossi needs to try and get through here as soon as he possibly can if he wants to have a go at winning the race. But whether or not he actually has the pace for Whitmore is an entirely different question. Whitmore has been on it since the first couple laps in the first race. Obviously not made the best start in the first race, but he's had the pace almost immediately.
Well, I think out of these front 4, even though Ross has set the fastest lap of this race, I'd say that Bolger is probably a tick. Is the fastest by a hair, but so he's been the most inconsistent of them all at the moment. And then Ross and Turmo themselves, with Ross being slightly, Turmo runs almost loses it. No, he does lose it. So Turmo's out of it. He's driven it too hard, one too many times, and that's him around and out of that battle pack.
Stuck the landing though.
Well, he stuck the landing, but that's going to put him good 5 or 6 seconds behind. And once again, he's very sideways in that final corner.
Now we see what Ross and Bolger can do though.
Well, Whitmore set his fastest lap of the race at 1:20.6, and Ross is half a second slower on Bolger at 21.7. So those two have to pull their heads together.
Well, Ross has just had a moment in turn 1 as well. Just under braking, looked like that car was trying to get away from him. He's just gathered it up, but definitely he's had another little lock up into turn 2 again.
Yeah, he's definitely not comfortable under braking in these things, and
all the curb there though.
You probably don't want to be on the curb there at turn 2. You want to be using a bit more of the track, be on the throttle a little bit more and going a little bit quicker.
When I've driven one of these, going anywhere near the curb's been the most terrifying thing in the world.
It's our fastest first sector for Whitmore that time around, and Bolger just a tenth slower. Ross lost a good 0.3 of a second there in that first split. So the gap 2.1 seconds to Whitmore, and Bolger 9/10 behind Rossi now. As it looks like Whitmore coming up to some lap traffic.
Well, Tomo's gone around again in the background. Same corner as last time.
Ooh,
Not a good few laps here for Tomo at all.
No,
He's gone from being a strong challenger for the win to... If Whitmore does a 20.4, that's only a couple tenths away from his pole position time.
A 20.6 for Ross and a 20.5 for Bolger, so the pace has ramped up a bit. But I think Ross and Bolger, they've blown their chances with 4 laps to go, barring a mistake from Whitmore. They needed to be faster early in the race. Ross needed to get a pass done on Turmo when he was making those mistakes earlier on. And Bolger, again, too timid, and then he was a bit at sea for a few laps, so he was a couple seconds behind Ross after getting right on his gearbox on lap 3. So after that, he sort of dropped off a bit and made a couple errors, and only now is he sort of closing in again. So
yeah, for me, the key moment was really once Turmo started having those issues, whether or not Ross could get the pass done. He gets a bit of a slide on there, but had he been able to get that pass done when Turmo started having issues, he may have had a chance at getting onto the back of Whitmore, but now, barring a mistake, it is just going to be too little too late.
yeah, so Bolger currently fastest of the 3 this time out. He's 3/10 faster on this lap, faster than Whitmore, and he's 2/10 faster than Ross up until the middle split. That said, I think that last split there from Ross is pretty handy. Yeah, he was 3/10 faster than both Bolger, and he was 2/10 faster than Whitmore. So they gap at 2 seconds. The lap times for those 3, obviously Whitmore 20.8, 20.720 for Ross, and a 20.712 for Bolger. And Coops is in front of Turmo, so Turmo was spun again. So let's just have a look at the replay here. Coming out of turn 5, he's got it on the curb and onto the grass, and he's overdriven.
Ross has had a big issue under braking there for turn 3. He's going very wide, then on the exit. Now Bolger is right behind him here. Well, another moment there from Ross. He's
He's up.
Tyres are hot or going or God knows what, but he's having issues. He's off the couple wheels off the track there.
Bolger had to get out of the throttle because his line wasn't quite right through turn 5 there. But yeah, Ross, his tyres are probably a little bit worn and probably a little warm on that right hand side. And well, that gap in front is 3 seconds now. They've dropped a second to Whitmore, so this race is effectively over for first place anyway.
Can Ross hold on to his second place here? I've forgotten that there is in fact a third race, and was about to say something to make myself sound like an idiot.
Well, regardless, you're an idiot, so
Yeah, well, you're a cheat.
well, you're going to have to deal with it. But yeah, 1 minute 20.8 for Whitmore in that last lap, a 21.4 for Ross, and a 20.9 for Bolger. But Bolger now, he could be
gone wide there, but maybe he's setting himself up for the exit.
Ross it looked like he made a slight mistake running on the curb in the mid-corner, turn 2 there. So they both run right onto the grass. It's going to compromise Bolger a little bit, and he's going to have to lift. And yeah, they're just not driving it as well as he could at the moment. Little lock-up from Whitmore in the background there.
The gap to Whitmore has actually come down. It's under 2 seconds through the first split. It's come down again another tenth.
Yeah, so a couple slight mistakes here and there for Whitmore, but he just might be taking it a little bit easy at the moment. Obviously, there only being a couple laps to go.
See what the gap as they cross the line. The final sector has been where Ross has been strongest. So
21.4 for Whitmore, 20.5. So that was very close to Ross's fastest lap of the race, and 20.9 for Bolger. So that gap, 1.8 seconds. But just the consistency right now for Ross is killing him. If he just maintained 1 minute 20 pace, it'd still be on the gearbox of Whitmore, but he's a bit too up and down at the moment.
Yeah, just probably trying a bit too hard to catch him, not realising it's sort of the worst thing you can do with these cars.
Line through turn 2 there, still not great. Got 1.9, so he's lost about a tenth and a half there.
See what it is as they come through the next sector. One of the things with the Formula... Oh, it's come down to 1.5 seconds now. He's 3 or 4 tenths quicker through that middle sector.
Yeah, turn 5 is where Rossi seems to be quite strong. Yeah, fastest middle sector of the race for Brendan Ross in the middle sector that time around. He's got to get turn 2 right. He's not really gone through there right at all so far in this race. 1 minute 20.5 again, so a couple laps in a row, 1 minute 20.5s.
3 thousandths off his best lap.
Yeah, so he's sort of dropping Bolger at the moment, but he's not quite fast enough to sort of reel in Wayne Whitmore on this. Well, they're on the final lap now, 1.5 seconds, and oh, I believe Steve in the background's had it off.
We definitely dropped well behind Ross now.
Yeah, it lost it under braking at turn 1 and spun around.
Just needs to cruise around now. He's got plenty of gap behind him to just bring it home on this final lap for 3rd place. There's Whitmore. Looks like he's a bit sideways there into turn 4.
So just right on the Harkinell shoulder cam. See, it did come down a little bit through that turn 5 section, but it's not going to matter. 1.2 seconds at the second split. But Whitmore, barring a mistake here at the final turn, or an engine failure or internet disconnect, should take 2 from 2 here. And there it is. He's crossed come out of the final corner, and he'll take race 2. Ross will, that gap's under a second. Yeah, 9/10 of a second. And he did his fastest lap of the race, so 120.3. That would
great finish from Ross there. Just a little bit too inconsistent.
Yeah, far too inconsistent.
The early and mid stages of the race.
Yep.
He does donuts though, so there's the win for Brendan Ross.
Yeah, he's doing doughies, which is good to see. It looks like Whitmore this time has ended up Yeah, it looks like Whitmore's trying to do doughies, so it doesn't matter though, mate. After, obviously, the third race, you will probably be getting a knock on your door, and you'll be gone for 25, so...
So get the battering ram out, that'll be the knock.
Yep, so
I'll be knocking it down.
Whitmore, you will be getting swatted, so we'll see you in 25 years. Well, that's after the third race, of course, and even Steve is doing some doughies this time out. So Coops will finish in P4, who's 44 seconds behind Steve. So these front three are well out in front, and Termo is going. No, Termo lost it out of the final corner and is been smashed into by Joyner, who is a couple laps in front of. And Joyner will finish 6th. Termo will finish a frustrating 5th for him. He just overdrove it early on, and even after obviously his car gave him a couple of scares, he decided to keep pushing on, and yeah, that cost him dearly in the end. He was a minute behind Steve Bolger in P3, and he was leading the race in the early part of the race. And then obviously join up P6 and Glenn Miles in P7. So everybody finished, which is good to see. But we would like to see, obviously, Termo make it a 4-car battle at the front. We'd like to see Ross be a little bit more consistent. And hopefully Luke Joyner, Coops and Glenn Miles can find a bit of pace and obviously make an even bigger battle pack as well. But that's 2 from 2 for Whitmore. Ross P2, Bolger P3, Coops P4, Termo P5, Luke Joyner P6, and Glenn Miles in P7.
Bit of an improvement all around there in that race. I think Termo the only one really who's dropped off from what we saw in the first race, but we did say that we expected these cars to fight at least one of these guys per race, and it looks like he was just the unlucky one this time. Hopefully he'll recover for race 3.
Hopefully so. And believe this race is a reverse grid race. Scruff, I believe. I'm just
Yes, reverse of the race 2 results, as we don't actually have championship standings at this stage, and then in future rounds, the race 3 will be reverse championship order.
Yep. So obviously next time out we'll have a championship order, and we'll have the obviously final race reverse grid. So as that gets set, we'll just take a short break. So obviously you guys out there that absolutely love this elevator music, obviously got some new tunes this time out, so hopefully you enjoy them.
New beats, y'all.
Yeah, it's all about those new beats. They're very lit, as the
What does that mean?
kids like to say. So
If you know what that means and you're watching, please leave the definition in the comments, because we're both very old.
also, and some fire emojis because, yeah, lit. Alright, so we'll be back, and
Don't know what it means.
race 3 will get underway probably in about 10 minutes or so time, so we hope to see you there. Hello and welcome back. We're into the race session now. The grid has been reversed and it is race 3 of round 1 of season 3, the Automobilista Australia Rookie Cup. That probably didn't make sense, but we'll roll with it.
What?
Just have another drink, mate. So, obviously, reverse grid from
Don't
race...
tell me twice.
So, reverse grid from race 2. We'll see Glenn Miles start from pole position. As you can see on your screen, and Luke Joyner is on the front row. Obviously, still waiting for the drivers to get the go-ahead to begin the formation lap.
They're underway.
Well, they're meant to be underway, taking both Luke Joyner and Glenn Miles a little bit of time to react to the... See, Marshall's telling them to hurry the F up and start your formation lap. So it's going to be interesting to see how, obviously, Wayne Whitmore, as you see Glenn Miles off already, and I think even Luke Joyner off on the grass there. You can see a bit of grass on the outside of his tyre, so both of them missing the braking point already in this formation lap. But I was just about to say it'd be interesting to see how, obviously, Wayne Whitmore, Brendan Ross, and Stuyve cut their way through the front of this field. Thankfully for them, the field isn't too big. Only 7
Still
runners.
got the splash screen up.
There you go. On our screen. I must have tapped it again. But as you can see on your screen, there's Glenn Miles. He'll be leading us away. Luke Joyner in second. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how the guys that finished in the top 3 in the second race do get through the field. This is a golden opportunity for Turmo if he can get another good start. He's been the one that's got away well each time so far. So if he can get a good start again and get into the lead and just keep it smooth, he should drive away a little bit and have a little bit of a gap over those guys at the back. But he starts P3. And we've got Coops in P4. And the Husink-Veld black and red machine. Then we've got Stuyve Bolger in P5. Brendan Ross, the number 1 Razor engineering car. It looks a little bit like... It resembles a little bit like the old Kmart cars in supercars in the early noughties.
We do know Ross is the king of bogans.
Certainly that. Certainly so. And then we've got Wayne Whitmore at the back. So drivers just about to form up onto the grid. We'll just try and find a solid camera view. No, there's nothing in the way there. So we're going to have to deal with this one. Just zoom out a little bit.
I wouldn't do that.
Well, it just did.
No.
Couple lights out, and we're away. A good getaway from Turmo. He should be into the lead. Looks like Whitmore got a shocker at the back. And yeah, so Turmo into the lead. Miles is holding around the outside.
Contact at the back.
Yeah, so Turmo's well away. Joyner's blocking Rossi, who's up into P3. So he's up 3 spots. He's had a good start there. Coops P4, Bolger P5, and Miles is going to be last by the look of it. Yes, he's last by the final turn.
Second turn.
Second turn, yes. Final quarter.
Oh, someone's around. 2 cars around.
Yeah, so who is that? That is
Coops and Bolger.
Yeah, so let's just have a look here. So looks like Coops, I think he's going to lose it here, and yes he does. No, there's someone in front of Coops. Looks like Joyner's lost it. Yeah, Joyner has lost it. Coops has hit the brakes, tried to avoid it, and Joyner once again contact with Bolger, and Bolger's had nowhere to go, and well, Bolger's off again, so I think he's got a bit of damage in that car. And he's unfortunately had to retire. So Luke Joyner losing it there has wiped out Bolger. Coops spun on his own trying to sort of slow down. And that's cost that. Looks like Joyner is going into the pits. And well, we've got a familiar top 3. Unfortunately for Turmo, obviously Ross got up into P2 pretty quickly. He's into P3 after turn 1. So he's only 1.3 behind. And then 1.4 behind Ross, we've got Wayne Whitmore. And then 10 seconds behind him is Glenn Miles in P4. going very slowly there through turn 1. And Coops is 3 seconds behind him, and Joyner is in the pits getting his car repaired.
Be interesting to see how the top 3 does play out. There's fairly equidistant between them. A couple extra tenths between Ross and Turmo.
I think Turmo has lost a tenth or two to Ross, but Whitmore behind is a good 6 tenths faster or so in that first sector alone. So Turmo, he's just got to keep it nice and smooth early and not drive in his mirrors. As he once again slides in that corner, gave him all kinds of grief in race 2. But yeah, he's just got to keep it smooth here. And
Ross with a bit of a moment there, a bit crossed up on entry to the final corner.
yeah, so we did see, obviously, he's got a yellow
Luke
flat.
Joyner, I think, has just been unspeeding the pit lane.
Let's just have a look. A bit of smoke as well. These cars don't have a speed limiter, so that's something.
That'll do it.
Yeah, he's gone a bit quickly there, and then he's tried to stop, and that's the end of that chapter. So the gap between the first 3 now was 2.9 from Turmo to Whitmore. It's now 1.8 on that lap. A 1 minute 20.5 for Whitmore, while at 1 minute 21.5 for Turmo, and Brendan Ross a 1:21.2. These guys are comfortably quicker than those guys behind. But if Turmo wants to win this one, he's just got to drive smooth and be consistent, and then once obviously Whitmore and Ross start to battle, he's got to take advantage of that and sort of break away a little bit and give himself time for later on in the race.
Yeah, the best thing here really is probably for
Words. Yes.
Apologies for my. I've had a breakdown. I've got to go into the pits. I've got to quickly change my tyres, and that sounds like I just soiled myself, doesn't it?
It certainly does. So
you can bet that I have.
El Chief has soiled himself. So Turmo did put a little bit of time on Ross on that lap, 2 tenths faster. Turmo
While having a look there into turn 1, no room through though.
Oh, Turmo, there's a bit of smoke there. I think he got it a little bit sideways there at turn 1. Let's have a look. Yeah, locked it. Managed to hold on to it at turn 1. I think it got half sideways on the exit. So all that effort, and he's lost it straight away. And once again, he's sideways at turn 2. He's got to drive it straight now because he's going to, once again...
Whitmore alongside Ross.
So
this is the race we've been hoping to see.
Yeah, but we'll hope to see it at the end of the race as well. Unfortunately, each race so far, it's around about between lap 4 and lap 8. Each time, the leader has stuffed up, and Whitmore's just said, "Thank you very much, I'll take the lead," and just walked away. And it looks like Turmo is trying to do that again. So he's just got to drive it nice and smooth. Keep saying it, but he's got to do it. And he's got to just not drive in his mirrors, drive it smooth, and just watch as Ross and Whitmore behind him battle it out and take advantage of that.
Yeah, if you were Ross right now, I think you'd be considering just letting Whitmore go through, getting onto the back of him and trying to get past Turmo that way, and then going for Whitmore again after that, because Whitmore clearly does have the pace here early, and we did see Ross fast at the end of the second race.
Yeah, that said, Turmo a little bit slower than Ross in that last sector. But yeah, I think it might be a smart idea for Ross, is just to, obviously, if Whitmore does get a move on you, is just to let him go easily and then just sit behind him, and then obviously once Turmo and Whitmore do battle it out, you just wait for your moment and take both positions if you can, as he struggles to keep it going in a straight line, but he holds on. And it's given Whitmore a little bit of a run here into turn 5, but looks like Ross got a better exit, and he's going to hold on to it for now, but they've dropped a little bit of time to Turmo in front.
I think Ross just looking in his mirrors a bit there, costing themselves time, as Whitmore looking for a way through.
And we did see it a bit in that in that last race, is that Ross did overdrive it a bit. And even in that first race, he did overdrive a bit when Whitmore was behind him. So he gets
Ooh,
wide
two
over
wheels
the
off
curb,
there.
and that's going to allow Whitmore to go by. So once again, it's another easy position for Whitmore. And another mistake from the driver in front.
I believe Ross has just been told to give him that position. As one of our viewers is now happens to be in the same voice chat as him.
Fair enough. So
The conspiracies start. You'll be on the Facebook comments just going crazy now.
Get your 10 foil hats out, folks. But
This is the Red Bull Rookie Cup, which is actually a motorbike series, so no copyright infringement intended.
Yeah, so now it's going to be, well, in that first sector, a bit more, couple tenths faster than Turmo. So the gap now 1 second between the two. But Ross looks like he's hanging on a little bit, although I think he's made a mistake there out of turn 3. He's dropped a little bit of time now to Whitmore.
Once Whitmore and Tomo start getting into each other, though, that will bring Ross right back up to them.
Well, that's what he'd be hoping, but we have seen Turmo make a couple of mistakes and run wide, as it looks like Whitmore over the curb, and that's dropped him time, and Rossi's going to be right behind him again.
This time, Whitmore not really gaining through someone else's mistake, it's his own mistake that tends to be costing him.
Yeah, but and he hasn't got a sector time for the middle sector, so
Cheat.
he's got a track cut somewhere. Something you haven't seen too much of. That said, it's still brought the gap down to Turmo in front of him.
Very different lines between the top 3 into that second corner. Whitmore preferring a slightly later entry. Ross and Turmo both seem to turn in a little bit earlier.
Yep. Ross very wide. He's kind of sideways. That's dropped him off the back as Whitmore begins the battle.
All three actually stepping back out just a little bit into the third corner, but not to the extent of Ross. As you see a bit of a lock up there from Whitmore. Sideways again out of there, but not running wide. Doesn't look like it's cost him anything.
It's right behind us, turning a little bit sideways there, but not too bad there. Whitmore fastest in the first sector.
He's been taking to the inside under brakes into that final corner quite a lot when he's been behind people, just trying to fill their mirrors up and get them driving in their mirrors and try to force that mistake.
Is an easier line to take as well. If you run wider, you can be a little bit faster perhaps in a touring car, but in these cars, a bit more difficult.
Turmo runs wide in the first corner. That's gonna...
Oh, it's been Turmo. Turmo's been sort of wide there every lap we've seen him. And they're going
side by side. They're side by side here.
Well, but Whitmore taking that inside line there, compromised his exit a little bit. But he takes that wider line into obviously turn 2, and it does help him out a bit, as he doesn't have to slow down as much for the mid corner. And then he's got
they're about to catch up to Glenn Miles as well to lap him.
Hopefully he doesn't interfere with this battle for the lead. And, Ross behind.
If he does, hopefully he slows them both down and brings Rossi back into it, and we can see what he's got.
Well, Rossi's made a couple of mistakes, as he's now 2 seconds behind these guys. So right on board a bit more into the penultimate turn. Looks like and well, that's and there's contact between second and third into Glenn Miles there.
Wayne Whitmore has had the gift given to him again. This time, not really a mistake being made.
Well, Whitmore...
Oh, wait, no, sorry, I was on the wrong camera.
So, Ross ran into the back of him as well, into the back of Miles as well. And, well, Whitmore, you'd have to think has got a bit of damage in his, but I think his contact is a little bit more front on, while Rossi's is, I think, a little bit more of that right front suspension. It looks like he's going to pit. His pit crew are getting ready.
Can't tell you how surprised I was, because I thought it was it was Whitmore, and then yeah, he was still going when I looked away for about half a second, and I thought surely he'd be in pieces.
And it's right hand down for Rossi. He's got significant damage in that thing, so he's going to try and get that fixed, but just Miles is just he's looking in his mirrors too much there, and It's just silly driving. He just needed to just concentrate on getting the next corner right, and then letting them go into the final turn. But looking in his mirrors, and you can't get off the throttle in these things without the back end stepping out, and he's obviously done that, and then spun in front of Whitmore and given him damage.
Whitmore has been quicker on this lap through the second sector. Only by a couple tenths though, so...
It was 2 tenths faster the first sector as well, so his car seems okay. It was more front-on contact, but unfortunately Ross behind. Once Miles...
Another tenth to Whitmore in the final sector.
Yeah, once obviously Miles lit it up, I think Ross maybe even ran a little bit wide, and then obviously gave him a bit of damage. But it looks like Ross is going to try and continue on. He's got 24 seconds to Coops behind, but...
last time Ross tried to continue on, we were both screaming into our microphones about it.
Yeah, so that was a 1:28, so he's 7 seconds slower than Whitmore on a 21.1. Coops on the last lap was a 26.7, but he hasn't crossed the line yet. So what will Coops do when he crosses the line this time around?
Turbo here. Sorry, Lewis, you go ahead.
Well, it's a 24.7 for Coops.
So it should be fairly safe for Ross then, as long as that car keeps pointing in the right direction.
Yes.
The Turbo here might not be quite as relaxed as you'd think he would in this situation. We've got Whitmore 4.2 seconds behind us. On the last 2 laps, he has brought it down by a second, and he hasn't even finished this lap yet. So any mistake here from Turbo, and it will be right back on for the lead.
Now that said, that if Turbo doesn't make a mistake though, that Whitmore's going to have to be over a second a lap faster now. The gap being 4.2 seconds, so he's going to have to find significant time. All Turbo has to do is just lap in the 21s, and Whitmore's going to have to be doing, 19s to be able to really force.
Turbo will see that gap coming down though, and he just needs to not think, as he gets very sideways through turn 2 there.
Yeah, turns.
He just needs to not even look at the gap. He just needs to do his laps. Not even think about it, it's down to 3.4 seconds already.
Yeah, he's not had that line through turn 2 right all night. There's a corner that he's just not worked out. He's
Whitmore absolutely on the limit there in the background, sorry.
Yeah, they're both sliding it out a little bit, so I reckon that gap will be down even further in this middle sector. And that turn 2...
Half a second through that sector.
Yeah, turn 2 he's just not quite got right at all. Turns in too early and it just compromises the mid corner and the exit, and then it also messes up setting up the right hander as well at turn 3. So he's really got to sort out turn 2. If he does that, it'll be significantly faster, and the gap now 2.9 seconds.
Less than a tenth to Whitmore on that one, but the third sector hasn't been his strong point.
Yeah, and Brendan Ross now, he had an off on that last lap that we caught a glimpse of, and the gap between himself and Coops is now 15.4 seconds, so that gap is coming down.
3 laps to go out the front, under 3 seconds, so he's already been doing that more than a second gained per lap, so pressure is on Turbo here just to keep it clean. That's all he needs to do now.
And he's lost another
3.3 seconds.
Yeah, he's lost 6 tenths of a second in that first sector. So turn 1 and 2, he's just got to get those right, especially turn 2.
He's just looking at the timing too much, I think, here, Turbo. He's seen that Whitmore does have the pace and then just concentrated on the gap rather than just driving it. It's down to under 2 seconds to now, 1.9 seconds.
Yeah, I think he's just got to turn the HUD off that shows the gaps. Probably turn the virtual mirrors off if he uses them, and just concentrate on the road in front. I remember Fernando Alonso a few years ago, his Ferrari days, he had someone behind him and they were telling him the gaps, and he told him to shut up, he doesn't want to know. And
Whitmore with a 20.332.
So a second faster on that lap, and the gap now 1.8 seconds. He's got
2 laps to go, and he's been about 1.1 seconds faster on the last 2 laps, so definitely on here for the win if they both keep doing as they currently are.
So Turbo taking a different line through turn 2 this time out. Looks like he's compromised himself because he's runs to the middle of the road for turn 3, and then you can't take turn 3 as good as you can. And you're a bit slower coming in through 4 and 5 here. So that's fine.
1.4 seconds after sector 1. Just about to finish off the second sector. Will it be under a second?
It won't be under a second, but it'll be probably about 1.2, 1.1. There it is.
Oh, you're good. If that was 1.200, I'd be incredibly impressed.
That said, though, all Turbo's got to do is just keep it going. And behind them, the battle for 3rd and 4th, Ross is 11 seconds in front of Coops. Actually, scratch that. It's about 9 now, I think.
Leaders come across the line to start the final lap. 1.1 seconds between them. Turbo gets in a clean lap. He should be able to take this.
Yeah, all he's got to do
sideways out of that first corner.
All he's got to do is just keep it on the black stuff, really.
Whitmore's going to be right with him as they cross the line, though.
Just right on board once again. Yeah, this turn 2, you've got to compromise the exit a little bit so you can set yourself up for the next one. It's what Whitmore does that everybody else doesn't do.
Under a second through the first sector.
And I reckon that gap's come down a little bit more as well, just from that exit alone. So he might be close enough.
Just that line into turn 3.
Yeah, Turbo through turn 5 took the wider line through it, and it is the better line. And I reckon if he doesn't mess up this left-hander here, he should bring it home.
Whitmore's only had about a tenth through this final sector, so I'm going to say as long as Turbo doesn't make a mistake in the final corner, it's his win.
Look, and he should bring it home from here. So Turbo will take race 3. He'll hang on. It's, behind him, Whitmore gives it absolutely everything, but it's not enough as Turbo holds on.
Fantastic final lap there from Turbo. He had all the pressure in the world as they crossed the line to start it.
He set his best lap on the last lap. Just when he needed to.
If he doesn't do a donut here, there we go.
And there it is. So
we don't want to see another one imprisoned.
Yeah, it'd be a bit of a tragedy. And Whitmore also doing doughies. Doesn't matter, he's still going to jail. 25 for life, and then Rossi, he's still got one corner to go, and you can just visually see that the front right compared to the rear right is well out of whack on that thing, and he's going to try and spin it over the line, and there it is. He's just broken both his ankles, so that's Brendan Ross out of the next round of the Touring Cars and the Rookie Cup. And
that's alright.
Will finish behind him in P4, and Luke Joyner, he did have to serve a lap time for a pit lane penalty for a lot of that on his screen, but he must have done it because it's counted him in the standings. And then obviously Glenn Miles, DNF, and Steve Bolger also caught up in the unfortunate incident at turn 1, which was none of his doing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I did say that I hoped that the traffic would bring them back together, but I didn't mean to. I must have misworded it and said I hope the traffic brings them together. So that's clearly what happened.
So yeah, obviously there it is. We'll just go through the order once again. So Turbo, winner of race 3. I believe he led every single race. So obviously got off the line the best of everybody and of every one of these races and jumped to the front, but obviously in races 1 and 2 couldn't quite hold on, but he did this time, and he'll obviously take his first victory of the season. Wayne Whitmore first in the first 2 races, second in the final race. Brendan Ross, after his contact with Glenn Miles, struggled, but he got home with a very bent suspension. He finishes in P3, Coops in P4, and Luke Joyner, the last of the finishers, a lap down in P5 after having to pit for repairs after that first lap incident.
Definitely entertaining final race. Probably not quite in the way that we wanted it to be, but definitely a few different twists and turns as that one went on.
Yeah, obviously, unfortunately, that traffic got in the way, and we obviously saw Bolger taken out early on, which sort of ruined the spectacle a little bit. But Turmo did what he had to do and held on, and Whitmore gave it his all even after that contact with Miles and tried to bring it home. But obviously, I think the incident with Miles obviously set him back a couple seconds. I think it was about 4 or 5 seconds or something like that. And
Yeah, just over 5 seconds as they crossed the line to complete the lap where the contact occurred.
yeah, so that obviously without that, he probably would have been right under the gearbox of Turmo for much of
The rear gearbox.
the rear gearbox even of Turmo. But unfortunately, obviously, that didn't happen. And then obviously, Brendan Ross being the worst, well, one of the worst off in that incident with obviously Miles retiring. But Ross did all he could to finish, and thankfully he did, even though his car was hashtag trashed.
Yeah, it did mention the race last season where we were both screaming at him to pit, and fortunately not having to do that again this time. Made the right call to stay out.
The races being a bit shorter certainly would have helped him, and yeah, it would have been interesting actually. He probably would have found himself getting a drive-through penalty as well, because yeah, there is no pit lane speed limit in these things, so that will catch people out that may have an incident and have to traverse the pits to repair their car. But obviously, I think drive of the night would have to go to Wayne Whitmore, who will be in Pro B when it's all said and done. And obviously, dominant in the first two races, pole position in race 2, and then fighting through the field and through after that contact to finish second was a fair effort in race 3 as well.
Yeah, definitely. Not many mistakes from him tonight. He drove 3 great races. I think he was pole for race 1 as well. So really a flawless night in terms of his personal performance. Just unfortunate there in that third race to get mixed up with the traffic.
Yeah, certainly, and then obviously there was only 2 rookie slash pro-am drivers in the field. Well, no, there was 3. My mistake. There was Luke Joyner, Coops, and Glenn Miles. And I think as you can see, there was quite a difference between those guys and obviously those front 4 of Bolger, Whitmore, Ross, and Turmo all being Pro B drivers. So there's quite a couple second difference really. I think the fastest lap time any of them managed was by Joyner, which is a 21.9, which is 1.3 seconds slower than the slowest of those front 4, which is Turmo, who did a 120.6. So obviously they've got a bit of work to do to sort of close that gap between obviously the Pro B runners. But it does set a decent benchmark for them going into the future.
Yeah, definitely. I think these cars being a bit more of a handful is the decider there between the 2 classes, and I think that gap will between the 2 will come down as everyone gets a little bit more familiar with the cars and a bit more used to the unique way they need to be driven.
Yeah, I think these guys will probably have a bit of an advantage over a lot of the guys that haven't raced tonight. I think we'll see in round 2, especially early on in practice, and possibly even into the first race or 2. We will probably see these guys probably be more towards the pointy end of the field, while we see obviously the guys that haven't raced probably struggle a little bit, especially the rookie drivers that do hopefully show up. Because these cars do need to be driven a specific way with all the inputs vitally important. You can't rely on aerodynamics, and you can't rely on the car too much. It's all about how much throttle, brake, and steering you put in. And if you're off the throttle, you're going to be turning, as a couple of the guys found out the hard way.
If you've got a roundabout to go around, that'd probably be all right.
It'd have to be a very tight roundabout because it doesn't take much to spin these things, as we saw. But once again, we do like to. I think we do. Do we have anybody here in TB time?
I was stalling till you noticed.
Oh, I did have a couple other things up on my monitors. So, Scruff, I think as a change of pace, we'll get you to ask the questions this week. So, lead us away, mate.
I've lost my voice.
No, you haven't, mate. I know you haven't. So,
I'm still not doing interviews.
yes, you are, mate. So,
Nah, I gotta go.
so
What
Scruff.
would you like? What would you like to ask, Wayne Whitmore?
Oh, mate, you've got a brain, mate. You can put it together.
No, I don't have any good questions.
Come on, mate. You can think.
Nah, this is going to turn into a Mexican standoff. Come in, you go get yourself a drink.
I'll get myself a drink. You ask some questions.
I don't do interviews.
That's a lie. That is a lie.
Go on. You know you want to. Go on. Go on. Rossi, can you please do the interviews?
Wayne Whitmore, how'd you be so fast?
Sheer luck, I think. Doesn't normally happen for me like that, I've got to say. But yeah, I have spent a lot of time in the Formula Vs in AMS, and the lower power things I'm better with, and more horsepower I get, the worse I drive.
Well, you've done very well because you managed to keep the front tyres alive.
Yeah, I did spend a lot of time testing on the track to find out how long the tyres would last. So I would say I've done a fair bit of practice for this first round to try and do the best effort I can.
Well, you've done well. You're in the championship lead. Good luck for round 2.
Yeah, thank you. Great, nice racing to all.
Back to you, Scruff.
God.
Okay then. Well, we'll go to in Discord. His name is Balls Ain't Dropped Yet. So Balls Ain't Dropped. Obviously.
Yes.
You can talk normally.
Okay.
Not the greatest night for you, but see, you did get a second place, I believe, in the second race, and it looked like you found a little bit of pace and consistency, but it was just a little bit too late. And then in that third race, you unfortunately involved in an accident you couldn't really do much about.
Yeah, just a little bit too late for race 2. Car was borderline twitchy. Yes, Mr. What's his name, Scott, come into our Discord and just sort of tip for a setup for race 3. Seemed to work, but yeah, around race 3 was just a bit of a drama for me. The car felt heavy. Just didn't drive and it wasn't able to pluck fourth going down the back straight. But yeah, just having that incident with I think it must have been Whitmore and Miles. Miles disappeared on my screen, so I had no idea where he was until I hit him.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. Obviously, we did see that you had significant suspension damage to your car. Did you think of pitting to repair that, or was that not a part of your mind?
I had 2 voices in my head from last season saying to pit, and I went opposite to it. So I think I made the right call today.
Yes, obviously you did come home still in third place, so it was the right decision. But obviously there is 2 championships, and it seemed like you guys in the front 4 were significantly faster than the rookie guys out there.
Yeah, it was definitely a big difference. I sort of didn't expect it. I didn't expect the cars to sort of drive. I didn't feel comfortable at all tonight. But hopefully more people turn up for the next couple of races to just sort of fill in the gaps and make the racing a bit closer.
Yes, so hopefully all those that are watching that can race obviously do show up in the next round in 2 weeks' time, which is at. Just trying to go off that. I think it is. It is at Cordoba. It's a very simple circuit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 corners, 6, 7 corners, long straight. So we might see a bit of slipstreaming around there. But obviously, Rossi, not the greatest start to your Pro B championship, but still, you've bagged some valuable points going forward.
Yes, thank you, and hopefully we have a good round 2 turn up.
Hopefully, and good luck.
Thank you.
And, well, we've also been joined by Termo, who had, well, an eventful 3 races. Obviously led away, got into the lead in all 3 races. Couldn't hold on in the first 2, but in that final one, Termo, you managed to hold on.
Yeah, I put my head down. Think I was thinking, right, I need to start driving properly, and yeah.
Yeah, it did seem, obviously, especially in that the second race in particular, where you were in a decent position, but you had a little bit of a slide early on, and it seemed that you continued to push the car, and obviously the right hand side especially, and the right rear in particular, sort of seemed to overheat, and you were leaning on it quite a bit, and eventually it gave way, and it dropped you well down the field.
Yeah, I was thinking, I might as well show off for what I can do in these things, so I can drift,
Fair enough, but obviously you've shown decent turn of speed in these things. Looks like you obviously Rossi and Wayne all have very similar pace. So I think it's going to come down to, in the Pro B category, obviously just down to mistakes really, with all you guys pretty much within, I think, looking at live races, I think all of you guys are within a couple tenths of a second. So it should be a good battle throughout the season.
Yes.
But obviously, once again, congratulations on your race 3 victory, and I believe you nabbed a podium in race 1 as well. And best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Alright, so just before we wrap up the broadcast, on Thursday night we have the final V8 Supercar round. Obviously, it would be at Newcastle, but there is no Newcastle Street Circuit available for Automobilista or an R Factor that we can get our hands on to convert. So it is at Adelaide 1988 layout. So obviously that is the championship decider, albeit the championship is heavily in Brenton Hobson's favour after Lewis Wedding got himself into a bit of trouble.
Cheat.
So it should be interesting how that one plays out. That'll be handled by obviously the ARW TV crew of Stairs and Bagsy. I'm not sure if it will be Bagsy or Madbird for that one, but it's obviously Stairs will probably be there for that one. And then obviously the GT3 series, mini series I should say, is on Sunday night, but that won't be broadcast. But on Monday night we have the obviously the AMS Oz Touring Car Championship. That is from Velo Park, the same layout as last season, so it'll be interesting to see how people go around there. Obviously you had a couple first time winners out last time at Goiânia, bit of action there, and we had a bit of action last year at Velo Park with a couple first time winners, so hopefully you see that again, and we hope to see you there. So for those that have tuned in, thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.